It all started with a single letter. A handwritten note, scribbled with frustration and hope, sent from a struggling farmer in the heart of America. A letter that, by all accounts, should have been lost in the endless stacks of mail that flood Washington, D.C. every day. But for reasons no one could predict, Donald Trump chose to read it. And what he did next, no one saw coming. Instead of brushing it aside or sending a generic response, the former president did something that shocked even his closest advisors. He accepted the invitation. He would go, in person, to see what was really happening on America's farms. And so, on a crisp fall morning, his convoy rolled into the rural town of Ridgefield, Iowa. It was the kind of place that didn't make the news. A town where neighbors still borrowed sugar from one another, where the local diner knew your usual order before you sat down. A town that, like so many others, had seen better days. At the edge of his property, Ethan Carter stood, wiping his hands on his worn-out overalls, his face unreadable. 3 generations of his family had worked this land. 3 generations had fought through droughts, market crashes, and uncertain futures. And now he was facing the hardest battle yet: survival. Beside him, his wife Sarah clutched a kitchen towel in her hands, her gaze fixed on the growing commotion. Secret Service agents in sleek black suits scanned the property, their sharp eyes darting over the old barn, the rusting tractor, the acres of golden wheat swaying in the wind. Then the door of the limousine swung open. Donald Trump stepped out. His signature suit was crisp, his expression as unreadable as ever. Ethan didn't wait. He stepped forward, extending a firm handshake. "Mr. President, I appreciate you coming, but I won't sugarcoat my words." Trump smirked, gripping Ethan's hand with surprising force. "I wouldn't expect anything less." There was no small talk, no pleasantries. Ethan had been waiting for this moment for years, and he wouldn't waste it. "Sir," he started, his voice steady though frustration simmered beneath it. "We hear a lot of big promises, but out here, farmers are drowning. Prices keep dropping, fuel costs are through the roof, and corporations are buying up family farms like it's a monopoly board. Are you here to listen or just to talk?" Trump raised an eyebrow. "Ethan, I respect farmers. I've done more for farmers than most presidents. But things take time." Ethan scoffed, crossing his arms over his chest. "We don't have time. My land is on the line. My family's future is on the line. We are breaking under debt while corporations get richer, and you're telling me to give it time?" Silence. The kind of silence that weighs heavy. Even the Secret Service agents, normally stone-faced and indifferent, shifted uneasily. This wasn't a campaign rally. This wasn't a press conference. This was raw, unfiltered. Trump exhaled, crossing his arms. "Look, Ethan, capitalism works. It's not perfect, but it's the best system there is." Ethan clenched his jaw. "There's a difference between competition and getting crushed." Sarah sensed the storm brewing. She stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on her husband's arm. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice calm but firm, "why don't we continue this inside?" A pause. Then, surprisingly, Trump nodded. "All right, let's talk." Inside their modest home, the scent of fresh bread and coffee still lingered from breakfast. The furniture was old but well kept. A few framed photos lined the walls. Family gatherings, childhood moments. A black and white picture of Ethan's grandfather, standing in the same field that was now on the verge of slipping from his grasp. Ethan pulled out a chair at the kitchen table, gesturing for Trump to sit. Sarah, always the hostess, poured a cup of coffee and placed it in front of him. Trump glanced around. No cameras, no reporters, just a kitchen table and a conversation. Ethan sat down across from him, leaning forward. "Mr. President, we grow food for thousands, but some nights we can barely afford our own groceries." Trump's brow furrowed slightly. What's stopping you from succeeding? Ethan didn't hesitate. Big corporations. They manipulate the market, control the prices, and buy up land faster than we can keep up. We don't stand a chance. Trump took a slow sip of coffee, considering his words. That's capitalism. Ethan shook his head. No, that's corruption. A heavy pause. Sarah set a plate of cornbread on the table, breaking the tension for a moment. Mr. President, she said softly, you should taste what struggling America really is. Trump hesitated, then picked up a piece. He took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. It was simple, homemade, the kind of food that told a story. One of early mornings, hard work, and unshakable resilience. Sarah smiled, but it was a sad smile. We sell this at the market, but barely make enough to cover our costs. Ethan leaned forward. Farming isn't just a job, Mr. President. It's a way of life. It's our identity. And right now, it's slipping away. Trump set down his fork, his gaze shifting from Ethan to Sarah, then to the worn-out floorboards beneath them. He had been in boardrooms filled with billionaires, campaign rallies packed with supporters, and high-stakes meetings with world leaders. But this was different. For once, he wasn't just talking. He was listening. And something in his expression, something rare, suggested that maybe, just maybe, this visit would be more than just another stop on the road. Ethan could only hope, but he had no idea just how far this conversation would go. Trump set his cup down, his fingers drumming lightly against the worn wooden table. The weight of Ethan's words lingered between them. For a man who had built his career on confidence and control, he now found himself in unfamiliar territory. Not a boardroom, not a debate stage, but a farmer's kitchen, where facts weren't spun and reality couldn't be ignored. Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady but edged with frustration. Mr. President, this isn't just a business problem. It's survival. We work from dawn to dusk, but every year, it gets harder to keep our heads above water. The banks don't want to take chances on us. The corporations want to swallow us whole. And Washington? He exhaled sharply. Washington doesn't even see us. Trump, arms crossed, studied the farmer carefully. I hear you, Ethan, but you've got to understand. Change doesn't happen overnight. These systems, trade, finance, regulations, it's complicated. Ethan scoffed, shaking his head. It's only complicated for the people who aren't living it. Sarah, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. Her voice was softer, but no less firm. Mr. President, do you know what it feels like to walk into a grocery store and have to count every dollar, even when you grow the very food on those shelves? Trump's expression shifted. He didn't respond immediately, which in itself was unusual. The businessman turned president was known for quick, often forceful replies, but this time he hesitated. Ethan sighed, running a calloused hand through his hair. The way things are going, my kids won't inherit this farm. They'll inherit debt. We don't need bailouts. We don't need empty words. We need fair policies that protect small farms like mine, instead of letting big corporations steamroll us. Trump rubbed his chin, his mind working. So what do you want? More subsidies? More government intervention? Ethan shook his head. No, Mr. President. I don't want government handouts. I want a fair shot. Stop letting foreign companies flood the market with cheap imports while American farmers go broke. Stop giving massive corporate farms all the tax breaks while we scrape by. Level the playing field. Trump exhaled, nodding slowly. All right, Ethan, I get it. Ethan folded his arms. Do you? Because every politician who's come through here has said the same thing. They nod, they promise, and then nothing changes. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Trump smirked. Ever driven a tractor, Ethan? Ethan blinked, caught off guard. You serious? Trump pushed back from the table, standing up. Show me what you do every day. Ethan stared at him for a moment before finally nodding. All right, Mr. President, let's go. And with that, the conversation moved from the kitchen table to the very soil that kept Ethan's family alive. The midday sun beat down on the open fields as Ethan led Trump toward his old John Deere tractor, its faded green paint a testament to years of hard work. The smell of freshly tilled soil mixed with the faint scent of fuel. Ethan climbed onto the machine with practiced ease, gripping the wheel with hands hardened by years of labor. Trump, standing at the base of the tractor, adjusted his tie before finally rolling up his sleeves. All right, Ethan, show me how this works. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. You sure about that, Mr. President? This isn't like driving a limousine. Trump smirked. I've been behind the wheel of plenty of things. How hard can it be? Ethan motioned for Trump to climb up, stepping aside as the president hoisted himself into the seat. Trump gripped the wheel, his fingers brushing over the worn leather, the control levers unfamiliar under his hands. Ethan stood beside him, arms crossed. All right, first things first, Ethan said. This isn't just about driving, it's about precision. You move too fast, you ruin the crops. You move too slow, you waste time. Every second counts, and every mistake costs us money. Trump's expression turned serious. All right, walk me through it. Ethan explained the basics, his voice steady but firm. Trump listened carefully, more carefully than Ethan expected. With a slow push forward, the tractor rumbled to life. It wasn't smooth, but after a few rough jolts, Trump managed to move it forward in a mostly straight line. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Not bad, Mr. President. But now try it after 10 hours in the sun, knowing you've got bills piling up and no guarantee of a good harvest. Trump slowed the tractor, letting the weight of Ethan's words settle in. He turned to look out over the vast farmland, stretching far beyond what the eye could see. Rows of corn, acres of wheat, land that had fed families for generations, now threatened by forces beyond any farmer's control. Stepping down from the tractor, Trump dusted off his hands. I get it, Ethan. This isn't just a business. It's your life. Ethan nodded. Damn right it is. And if we go under, it's not just us. It's the workers who depend on us. It's the local stores that rely on our crops. It's America's food supply, and every year, fewer of us are left standing. Trump exhaled sharply, glancing back at the fields. For the first time, he wasn't looking at numbers on a page or statistics in a report. He was seeing the reality of the struggle firsthand. All right, Trump finally said, let's talk solutions. Ethan folded his arms. That's all we've ever asked for. As they walked back toward the farmhouse, the conversation had shifted. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was a challenge. And Trump wasn't the type to walk away from a challenge. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields, Ethan and Trump stepped back inside the farmhouse. The scent of freshly baked cornbread and roasted chicken filled the kitchen, a stark contrast to the intensity of their earlier conversation. Sarah had been busy, preparing a home-cooked meal, the kind that had fueled their family for generations. Ethan pulled out a chair, motioning for Trump to sit. Mr. President, you've driven a tractor, walked the fields. Now, you're going to eat like a farmer. Trump smirked, adjusting his cuffs before taking a seat. I hope it's good, Ethan. You've given me an earful all day. I'll be expecting this meal to live up to the same standards. Sarah chuckled as she set a plate in front of him. Trust me, Mr. President, this is real food, not the 5-star stuff you're used to. Trump took a bite of the cornbread, nodding in approval. All right, I'll give you that. This is good. The mood in the room shifted. Less tension, more understanding. For the first time, it wasn't just about policies or politics. It was about people. Ethan leaned forward, his voice softer now. Mr. President, I don't doubt that you've done a lot for businesses in this country. But farming? It's different. This isn't just a job. It's a way of life. When we lose our farms, we don't just lose our income. We lose our homes, our history, our future. Trump set his fork down, his expression serious. Ethan, I hear you. But you've got to give me something real. What's the solution? What do you need from me? And Cuban exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Stronger protections for small farms. Fair trade policies that stop big corporations from driving us into the ground. Loan programs that actually help us, not bury us in more debt. We don't need handouts, Mr. President. We just need a fighting chance. Trump leaned back, tapping his fingers against the table. For a man used to negotiating billion-dollar deals, this was a different kind of problem. But he wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Sarah spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. This isn't about politics, Mr. President. It's about families like ours all over this country. If we disappear, who's going to grow America's food? Trump glanced around the modest kitchen, the worn-out table, the cracked tile floors, the framed family photos on the wall. This wasn't Wall Street. This wasn't Washington. This was real America. He exhaled deeply, then looked Ethan straight in the eye. All right? I don't make empty promises. Give me some time. I'll see what I can do. Ethan smirked, crossing his arms. We don't have time, Mr. President. But I'll believe it when I see it. Trump extended a hand. Then, I guess, I've got something to prove. Ethan hesitated for a moment before shaking it. For the first time, there was something neither of them had expected. Hope. At its core, this story isn't just about a president and a farmer. It's about the struggles that millions of hard-working people face every single day. Whether it's farmers fighting to keep their land, small business owners battling against corporations, or families doing everything they can just to make ends meet, this story reminds us that behind every policy, every statistic, and every debate, there are real people with real lives on the line. Though the characters in this story are fictional, the challenges they represent are very real. Too often, those who work the hardest are the ones who are overlooked. This story highlights the power of listening, of understanding different perspectives, and of taking real action. It also teaches us that sometimes unexpected conversations can lead to real change. Whether it's in politics, business, or everyday life, real progress happens when we put aside differences and focus on solutions that benefit everyone, not just the ones with the most power. So what do you think? Do stories like this inspire hope? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story resonated with you, or a 0 if it didn't. Your feedback helps us create better content that speaks to what matters most to you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.